One of the themes in A Catcher in the Rye is the idea that figuring out what you enjoy in life is an essential part of growing up. The book features Holden Caulfield, the main character and the narrator, at a crossroads in his life. He has 3 days to spend in New York City with a decent amount of money and total freedom. Despite everything there is in New York, he can't find anything he really wants to do. Over the course of 3 days, he breaks down emotionally and physically and ends up in a mental hospital. This is because he is constantly aware of the things he hates in the world, but can't seem to identify the things he enjoys. This is clearest in a conversation he has with his younger sister. She tells him to name even one thing he likes a lot in the world. He can't think of anything. Throughout the entirety of the book, he mentions more and more things he hates. He hates the entire society he lives in, which seems to be based around everyone vying for the top spot in some absurd social hierarchy. There are things in the world that he does enjoy though, and that's a point the author wants to make clear. He is never happier in the book than when he buys his sister a CD that he thinks she will like. He likes to help kids too because he sees them as being more genuine than adults. Maybe most importantly, the author employs the character of Jane Gallagher. She used to be Caulfield's neighbor, and he genuinely likes her. He really wants to call her and ask her out, but each time he tries, he just says that it's either too late at night or that he's not in the right mood for it. She is a symbol in the book for the promise that life holds for Holden Caulfield, but he's too blinded by what he doesn't like to recognize it. On page 172, he mentions that he would enjoy being a lawyer who saves innocent people's lives, but he worries, quote, how would you know if you did it because you really wanted to save guys' lives, or if you did it because what you really wanted to do was be a terrific lawyer, with everybody slapping you on the back and congratulating you in court when the trial was over? He is so absorbed by his disdain for phonies, a term he uses for disingenuous people, that he lets it get in the way of him doing what he really wants to do. This becomes so bad that when he is thinking to himself late in the book about what he wants to do with his life, he decides he will run away to the South and pretend to be a deaf mute so he won't have to have any phony conversations with anybody. He wants to live in a cabin in the woods and marry another deaf mute and homeschool their children. In essence, his goal in life is to run away from what he hates about the world rather than chase after what he loves about it. The author makes a very important speech to the character Mr. Antolini. Mr. Antolini is the only teacher that Holden Caulfield ever really looked up to and respected. He's also the person that Holden goes to later in the book when he needs a place to stay. He tells Holden that he is on his way to some spectacular fall. A type of fall that is, he says, designed for men who, at some time or other in their lives, were looking for something in their own environment, or that their own environment couldn't supply them with, or they thought their own environment couldn't supply them with. So they gave up looking. They gave it up before they ever really got started. The author is trying to show here that Holden Caulfield never really made an effort to find what he enjoys in life, and that, above anything else, is the reason he spiraled out of his mind in the last pages of the book. This poem is about driving home from some faraway place. The poem is titled How I Found Bliss. Similar to The Catcher in the Rye, this poem concerns a transition from youth to adulthood. However, there is a great difference in tone between the poem and the book. This comes from the narrator of the poem knowing what he enjoys in life. Clearly, going home is something he enjoys. He paints a picture of a car driving forward by pointing out mile markers and things he sees on the road as he passes. This lets the audience feel the sense of direction and destination that the narrator feels. That sense of destination allows the narrator to feel the bliss mentioned in the title. Holden Caulfield's complete lack of destination and direction in New York City in the plot of the book is part of what leads him down to eventually a mental hospital. Holden ends up at one point wandering to New York City and looking for ducks until he gets cold and he wants to leave and he doesn't know what else he can do. This is an example of the lack of destination, the lack of direction that Holden feels throughout the book. This picture, Wanderer Above a Sea of Fog by Caspar David Friedrich provides a sharp contrast to Catcher in the Rye. It is a very romantic painting, and it exemplifies the search for something more in life. The artist portrays himself alone atop a mountain, not only to fulfill the romantic ideals of finding purpose in nature and solitude, but also to portray the difficulty of the search. He seems to be searching for something in the distance, but there is nothing there. The setting is meant to show the endlessness of the search for purpose in life. This contrasts with Holden Caulfield, who wants to find the meaning and purpose in life, but does not want to actively seek it out. Rather, he becomes more and more frustrated as the book goes on that it does not seem to exist. The search for meaning and the search for enjoyment in life are inexorably connected. As a person grows up, they must realize that there is no grand, universal meaning for them to uncover. The search turns then to find a personal meaning in life, which starts with figuring out what in the world you enjoy.